Hey guys, another delayed episode. I'm really bad at this. But then again, this is all good fun. This is an amazing fun conversation with my buddy Adrian from MissFit Toys and Carrion and so much good stuff. Enjoy. And we go.
Yes, we are.
Sorry, we can edit. It's fine. So, we're here with Adrian Kjøsnes from MissFit Toys and various other projects, I gather. To list them here would be insane. But crazy stuff going. How are you doing, dude? How are you keeping?
I'm good. I woke up about 3-4 hours ago, passed out on the couch, woke up covered in yogurt and my laptop halfway on the floor. So that's, a good way to start the day. And then, ran to the store, ran back home, fucking made myself look somewhat presentable, and here we are.
As you can see, I have made zero effort. So hugely appreciated. Thank you. So let's do a little thing, because one of the biggest things I want to talk to you about is some of the sample packs and things that you've got. The big one coming out now. All done on your modular rig at home.
Yep, all of it.
How do you even begin to get into modular? Like, that is the one thing that I sit there and I do so much research into modular, and I want to get into it so badly.
Yeah.
But I'll get to a certain point and I'll be like, right, okay, I know what I'm talking about, and then I hit a wall. Like, immediately, all of a sudden I'm overwhelmed.
I mean, I don't know, like, there's, with like modular becoming kind of a popular thing these days, you're seeing a lot of new brands and companies, and as a result of that, it's becoming a little bit more accessible. Whereas, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago, you didn't really have anything that you have now. Like, now you can, you can go on YouTube and you can learn about it, and you have, there's this, I guess, like a virtual version called VCV Rack or something like that. So,
Right.
You have all these ways that you can learn about it and read about it and like really understand it before you even start spending any money. And of course, as a way to, I guess, accommodate beginners, you have a lot of companies who make semi-modular synths, which are just these standalone things, and they can be played with or without patching. And I think a lot of people start like that. I know I did. Like, I started with, it's a synth called No Coast from Make Noise. And it's just this little like semi-modular thing. And, you fuck around with that for a while, and then it just comes to a point where you're starting to think like, oh, this is cool, but I also want to do this and that and the other thing. And then you start to feel a little limited by the semi-modular, because obviously with it being a semi, it's just, it still has that like fixed format synth stuff, but you can break those points with patch cables. So I think for people who want to start out in this kind of thing, it will be, read up on it and make sure like, kind of get a good understanding of what you're doing, and then start looking at some semi-modular stuff and just take it from there.
Yeah. I suppose with the semi-modular stuff, you are sort of limited. You have like these VCOs, these LFOs and things, and you're sort of restricted to what you have in that box then.
Yeah. I mean, you do have that thing there with the addition of just being able to patch things wrong or whatever you want to do, really. I mean, I guess there is no such thing really as like patching something wrong, but it's just you can break those like hardwired points. So you do get a little more out of a semi-modular than you would from just a regular fixed format synth.
Yeah. It seems like it's one of those things that gets really addictive.
Yeah, it does, because the thing is that at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're building like a custom personalized instrument where it just grows as you grow and as you, I guess, start to figure out your sound. And, so, obviously, like, I can't tell you how many times I'm just sitting here and I'm like, oh, now I have this thing. And then fucking next day I'm discovering, oh, this could be cool. And then suddenly you have a fucking shopping cart where it's like $1,000 or maybe more, So I don't know. I guess, yeah, it's addicting, but it's because of the fact that you have so much freedom.
Yeah. It is one of those. It seems like so much fun once you've got everything set up and you can just fly into something. One of the reasons I've been looking into it myself is because I tend to fall into a pattern. Like, I have this bass sound that I always know is going to work, so I always end up going back to that one sound. But with the modular stuff, you can never go back. There's no step back to a preset. There's no saving.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why I guess that's sort of why I started doing it too, because of that whole pattern thing. But even with modular, like, you can get sampler modules and you can get those bass sounds or whatever in there. You can still use them and then further just fuck it up, really. And you can't technically recreate a patch. I guess it depends, like, how complicated is it, and are you using any like random voltage generators or anything like that. But you can always do patch notes, just write down like this fucking cable goes in there or whatever. But then again, that also seems to kind of defeat the purpose.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, it just seems like a lot of fun. So what are you currently working on? What's your current project now? Because I know you've got the sample pack coming out, but moving forward from there, what have you got going on?
Yeah, no, the sample pack is out now. It's called Cursed Circuits at Black Bat Audio. And so that one's really, I guess, compared to the first one that I did, it's a little more aggressive and just a bunch of fucking feedback and, just, it sounds just dirty.
Yeah.
It sounds like what I feel industrial music should sound like. Like, right. Just this really gritty, fucking disgusting sound. And other than that, I've been working on an all modular album. So I'm pretty sure I'm done with it. At least as far as recording and, working out a track list and all that stuff. So that's going to be all just instrumental, weird stuff, really. Though I do have a friend of mine who he does this noise project called Agres. So I'm having him do some vocals on, I think, 2 or 3 songs or something like that on the album. So yeah, I'm just waiting for him to send me the last song, and then it'll go to mastering, and I'm not sure what's gonna happen after that, really. Like, I'm trying to get it out on some kind of physical format, whether it's, tapes or CDs or vinyls or whatever. Like it seems to make sense, because a modular synth, or just any like hardware really, it's a physical medium. And nowadays, when everyone seems to just be using the same fucking samples over and over and over again on fucking Fruity Loops or whatever, it's like it would just make sense, like it kind of goes with it, to have music that's created in a very physical manner and put that out in a physical format, rather than just, I guess, be a little lazy about it and put it up in fucking Bandcamp.
That's a really good thought, actually. I hadn't thought of it that way, in that you spend so much time patching everything together and creating songs from that. Just sort of drop an MP3 somewhere and just let it do what it does.
No, I like to make things hard for myself.
I know the feeling, dude. I know the feeling well. But it's like, of course, because you did earlier this week, you worked on a remix for Vanity Kills. For her mask. I'll tell you now, I'm probably going to put that out alongside this so that people can hear it straight away. Because her mask is already out there, so I'll probably put it on a remix album later. But I'll drop it onto the YouTube channel for people to check out, because it was a mile off what I was expecting.
I mean, that's interesting though, because what did you expect? Because I mean, I assumed that you knew that I was going to do it with a modular.
Yeah, I mean, you told me outright, I want to do a remix on the modular with this stuff, and I thought, cool. I didn't quite know what to expect, but it was like, her mask essentially is like my pop song. It's it's a 3-minute song, verse chorus, repeat, and it's I sort of expected it to go maybe in a more conventional song style than it came out. And it struck weird to me, because earlier that day I'd been listening to a lot of podcasts and information on this is going to sound like a weird tangent, like psychological operations and things, where they would play certain musics to create feelings in people in warfare and things like that. And then, of course, your remix came, and it had I'm not saying it was something you'd use to torture anyone or anything like that, but it had that sort of like, wow, this really sort of evokes a mood, and it's this mood. And it was creepy, and it was gross, and it was pretty at the same time.
Yeah.
It was just cool. It was a way I'd never really thought of it. So I really liked how you worked on that. So, I'm intrigued now to see more of your stuff with done through the modular, because I've heard modular music before, and that was unreal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm into, like those podcast things that you were talking about, with like the weird, like psychological effects on music, stuff like that. Like, I'm definitely into that kind of thing. And at some point, I'll probably try to, just look into like what kind of chord progressions or, notes and pitches, like what will I have to do to make someone just fucking physically sick from listening to it.
Yeah.
Just like that. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess I'm like slightly sadistic. But yeah, no. Like, I love that shit. Like, I remember being like fucking, you're like 15 years old and you find songs like Gloomy Sunday or whatever, and you hear all these stories about like how people fucking kill themselves after listening to it. Like, that's the fucking shit I want to do. Like, I want that fucking effect. Like, yeah.
Like, rather than have someone listening to your music and interpret the emotion of it, like just actually transmitting that emotion through audio.
Yeah.
And it can be done. This was the craziest thing when I was reading up on this. there was a video on YouTube that was linked on one of these podcasts, and it basically said what you're actually hearing now isn't what's making you feel the way you do. It's what you think you can't hear that is making. And I genuinely felt it. I suddenly felt panicked. Every hair on my body stood on its end, and I was just this sort of immediate anxiety. And as soon as it stopped, I was fine. But through the entire process, there was this sub-frequency that was just immediately conveying that emotion without me even needing to think about it.
Yeah. But the thing that, like, the side of all that stuff that I don't really see a lot of people talk about is, like, someone has to make this music. And, imagine that you, like, I don't know, what's that thing? Like, is it the brown note that's supposed to make you, like, fucking shit yourself?
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, imagine making a song where the brown note is, like, all over the fucking place. Like, why is no one thinking of the fact that the person who's making this fucking song is probably shitting himself like 300 times?
Yeah, the whole process of making it, shit.
Yeah.
Was the other side.
Yeah, like, no one really seems to talk about that. So, I don't know.
It's truly sadistic if you went through it while making it.
Like, how are you going to make it without having to go through it, though? Because, like, how are you going to discover, like, you can read about it and whatever, but that doesn't necessarily always mean that it's true.
No.
So in some way you have to do some fucking experimentation here and see what happens and just, feel your way around, I guess.
Yeah. It'd certainly be an interesting experiment. It was one of the things we used to do in college when we used to set up the live rigs. Is we used to try and get whatever analog synthesizers we could, hook them up to the live rigs, and try and create the lowest possible. See if we could find the brown note through the make the entire auditorium shit themselves. It never happened.
Yeah, that's the kind of teenage rebellion you don't have anymore.
Yeah, part of me misses that. The rest of me not so much.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, that certainly looking forward to hearing some of the new stuff you've got coming out.
Yeah, of course.
Like, I've got a bunch of stuff because you sent me some of the demos from your sample pack. I've got a bunch of it loaded up in a sampler in my Logic Pro templates.
Oh, right, yeah.
So no doubt you'll be hearing some of that and some from the new pack on my next album. So I'm looking forward to playing with it.
Good. Yeah, I mean, it's, I probably have my own ideas of how I would use something, but, I'll do something like make a bass line out of a snare sound or, some weird shit like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, even though, like, yeah, the samples are categorized in some way where it's like, okay, so this is a snare and this is whatever, like, that doesn't really mean that you can't use it for anything else. And I do keep in mind when making the sample packs, I do keep in mind the possibility that maybe someone's going to not just simply buy this pack and then use the samples as they are, but maybe they're going to go ahead and further cut it up and, like, sample the samples, basically.
Yeah.
Like, just shit like that.
I think that's half the fun when you are using sample packs, is like, oh, I see what they were going for on this, but I want to use it for this. So
yeah, of course.
Start mashing up audio waveforms and things, and really sort of delving into the nitty gritty of the sample. That being said, I'm a sucker for big snares. So if I hear a big snare on something and, like, right, okay, I need that, cut that. It's exactly where it goes. That stays as is.
Yeah, no, with like drums and shit, I'm still kind of stuck in the 80s, which is weird because I wasn't fucking alive in the 80s. But, you know, just that whole like heavy fucking reverb snare and that whole thing. Like, I still do that, and I'll never fucking stop. I don't care what year it is.
Oh, I'm a sucker for a nice big crack snare with a gated reverb. You know, just taking any dry snare sound and Phil Collins in all over it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Are there any particular drum sounds that you use on the regular? Do you use any hardware drum machines or anything like that in your music?
I mean, I've never really had a drum machine. I do have Korg made this Bulka series, which is like just these, you know, affordable starter synth, whatever. So I have the Bulka sample, which I ended up using more as a drum machine more than anything else, really. But yeah, no, like I just use the modular stuff. Mostly for drums, I'll use this one module I have called Manis Eteritas by Noise Engineering, and it is all sawtooth. So it's designed to be very aggressive and filthy and all that shit. They did a module previously that was called Basimilus Eteritas, I believe, which is, I guess, their main like drum module. That seems to be how people are using that one. And so they took that concept and was like, well, let's make it even more aggressive. And then you end up with the Manis. So that's mostly what I use for drums. But every now and then I'll like get weird with things and just, you know, I'll have a filter fucking self-oscillating and then using that as drums. So
yeah. Going for the seemingly unconventional self-synthesized drums. That's something I've never been brave enough to wander into.
Yeah.
Like I have, and I have it right in front of me right now because I'm in my my recording room. The DR550 bus.
All right.
I think it came out in like '92, and it's sort of like Boss's budget synthesizer. It's got sounds from like an RX5 in it, and obviously the 808. But that thing is that is the Vanity Kills drummer right there.
Yeah.
Mash that up with like one of my new songs. I've stolen the synth from Them Bones by Alice in Chains and blended it with that. So mixing and matching drum sounds is way too fun.
Yeah, recycling.
Yeah.
No, but you know, that's kind of one of these things. Like, I guess that's part to why I've kind of just abandoned software, because when I first got into this whole industrial thing, which that was a fucking accident. Like, this isn't really my scene. Like, I grew up listening to like punk and metal and shit, and I would play in these like shitty little punk bands when I was like 12 years old. And then, you know, just stumble across shit like, I don't know, No Boughton and Throbbing Gristle and all that weird shit. And so to me, when I thought of industrial, because of the fact that those are the bands that I found, I always thought of it as this really experimental avant-garde genre. Yeah. And something like, you know, with something like a modular synth, you do get to experiment more than if you're just using a fucking software or whatever and VSTs and plugins and all that shit. And so, you know, I'm fairly known to kind of go on these rants about like just the state of industrial and all, like just talk shit on fucking everyone for, you know, it's like, you know, when someone thinks of fucking industrial nowadays, if you ask someone if they're into industrial music, they're either going to say fucking Rammstein, or they're going to think of something like, like a Suicide Commando type of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't hate Suicide Commando. Like, they're fine and they have some songs I like, but my issue, I guess, is more the fact that that whole like aggro tech, very dancey kind of thing seems to be what people think industrial is. Whereas if you look to the roots of the genre, you'll see that there is so much just weirdness going on. There's activism, there's a bunch of fucking occultism. Like, it's not just dance music. Like,
no, I mean, from my personal knowledge, the roots of industrial go way back into the mid to late 70s.
dude, it goes fucking further than that, which is another thing. Like, in the 40s in France, there was a guy called Pierre Schaeffer, and he invented this thing called musique concrète, where it is literally sampling. That's what he's doing. Like, that's what he did in the 40s in France. Like, he would just go around and record random shit, like fucking people talking or whatever, like the sound of a fucking bottle breaking or something like that. And he would then go and make music out of this. And it was called musique concrète because I guess it's French for like real music or concrete music or some shit like that.
Yeah.
So, that's where that whole like industrial sampling thing, like that's where that comes from. So it goes all the way back to the 40s. And then, after the 40s, you have all these other various people around the world who contribute to what eventually becomes what we have today.
Yeah. I had no idea. I'm gonna have to go on a wormhole into that sort of stuff. That's cool.
Yes, that's the thing though, because nobody seems to know what he did, and even more so relating to like the history of industrial music, a lot of the pioneers of early electronic music, and this would be during a time where electronic music meant, tape manipulation or something, because synthesizers didn't exist yet. So this would be like, I don't know, mid 60s, maybe around there.
Yeah.
A lot of the pioneers of tape manipulation actually went and studied under him. So a lot of them have that connection to him, which then, they take what they learned there and do their own spin on it, I guess. And yeah.
I mean, I know that tape manipulation had a really big bleed through into popular music in the 60s, where you had, artists like the Beatles using it with George Martin and doing all that sort of weird sort of tape manipulation stuff in the studio on their songs. When you listen to things like Sgt. Pepper and the original version of Let It Be, it's covered in that stuff.
Yeah, when it comes to like, I guess specifically for like British or fucking whatever you want to call it, I guess it's British, that side of like electronic music history, I guess the thing that I tend to kind of gravitate towards is like the BBC's Radiophonic Workshop, where you have these people in a room who they're not supposed to be musicians, and they don't receive credit in the same way that a musician would. Like, they were mostly there to just, I don't know, make sound effects for radio plays, or make, little things here and there for like movies that would be shown in school. And then, out of that, you get something like a Doctor Who theme.
Yeah.
And it's like, still to this day, there's very few people who seem to realize who actually made the Doctor Who theme.
Now, this is one I did know, but now it's gone from my brain.
Yeah. No. So the story of the Doctor Who theme is you had this guy called Ron Grainer, and he had essentially written down like sheet music, I guess. He had written it down somewhat like that, and I guess he expected that you would need a whole band to do it. So he gets in touch with the Radiophonic Workshop somehow, and then the person who ends up actually making the music was a woman called Delia Derbyshire. And she did it with tape manipulation and all these things. And the thing is that I guess nowadays it's like, I guess kind of hard to imagine any kind of music, regardless of genre, where some form of electronic whatever isn't involved. But at the time, you didn't have electronic music. Like, it didn't really exist. And I mean, people really didn't respond that well to it. Like, whenever this whole workshop would make jingles and stuff like that for radio shows, like, the papers would be fucking filled with complaints. It would be like, oh, it's fucking disgusting. Like, what is it? Like, screeching fucking siren noises. Like, people really didn't fucking embrace that shit. And then, just like imagine being fucking, imagine being like fucking 10 years old and you're sitting in front of your TV and, there is no electronic music. Like, it pretty much doesn't exist in your world. You've never heard it. It certainly doesn't open TV shows. And then fucking Doctor Who comes on with that song. Like, that's such a big reason for why all these people, who were kids and I guess teenagers in the generation where the very first incarnation of Doctor Who, when that started, like, that's why they'll always say something about how they would like hide behind a couch.
Yeah, because I mean, sound like that at that point in time would have been literally alien to them.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. And, it's also, I guess, post-war Britain, and which is relevant because Delia Derbyshire, who's the one who made that song, or theme song, or whatever you want to call it, she would grow up laying there at night, awake, listening to air raid sirens.
Yeah.
Which seems like an obvious connection, I guess, Think of like the Doctor Who theme song and a fucking air raid siren, Like, you can easily see it. And, so that also plays into like, I guess, the reaction that people would have when they hear that song in the 60s.
It's got to be a weird feeling. Like, if you sort of come from all those sorts of air raid sounds and you're listening to those, and there was one person who, after all the panic had died down, went, I wonder if I could make that musical.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's probably the most widely recognized song in the world, it seems. So
it's definitely up there. Yeah. I mean, you listen to it now, and yeah, it's been recorded, I don't know how many times by now, and it changes with every season. And but they've stuck so closely to the base level of what it was when it was first recorded. And the reason for it is because there is no other way. You couldn't take that piece of music and put it into something else and expect it to have that effect without looking back at what was done at the time. Like, you listen to the original now and you can play that alongside any electronic piece of music that's come out since, and it still sounds relevant.
Oh yeah, I mean, dude, I've been like, for the past couple of weeks, I've been just scouring the internet for all these like recordings that she did, and because being, I guess, an employee or whatever of the Radiophonic Workshop, they're not really considered musicians or artists or anything. They're just, I guess nowadays it's like what we would call sound designers.
Yeah.
So she obviously didn't make songs in that structured sense, but there's like a fair amount of it on YouTube, and there's some stuff there where they have, after she died, they've gone through recordings that they found in fucking cereal boxes in her attic, because why not, right? And when they play these recordings, it turns out to be what we nowadays, like, if that was released when it was made, and us in 2020 looking back at it, we would definitely go, oh, this is where dance music or whatever started, because it has that like typical beat. And there's one song in particular, I can't fucking remember what the name is, because it's just not even a real word or anything, but listening to it is like, it might as well have been released like today, just like based on like the style. It's very trippy and weird, and it's the kind of thing that I feel like maybe one day I should make a 10-hour loop and drop some acid and just listen to that. It's that fucking level of weird.
That would be sick. The timing of that as well is so appropriate. With that sort of thing happening in the mid 60s.
Oh, absolutely.
With all the experimentation that was going on, and right into the 70s. I always remember my dad talking about Tangerine Dream.
Yeah.
And him putting an album on after getting home drunk one night on headphones and sitting in the dark, and within about 10 minutes he had to turn it off because it had freaked him out.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've never really had that bad of an experience like that, and I kind of wish I did.
Yeah.
Just because, I don't know, like I'll send weird fucking music that I find to just, friends and whatever, and they'll be like, oh, this is so creepy, how the fucking you listen to this, considering outside my window is the fucking woods. Like, I live in the middle of nowhere, and so, I'll sit here in the middle of the fucking night, living alone in the woods, and there's nothing fucking around, just listening to these creepy fucking things. But I don't look at it that way, I guess. And I don't know, maybe life would be more exciting if I did.
Do you think that's a product of the time that we live in, though? Like, it's that, back then those things were, kind of like, back then those sounds were, like we said, alien. But now it's really hard to find a sound that doesn't exist in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, just like in general, we seem to be just desensitized in every fucking way that's ever been possible. But I think another thing about it is like the way that we consume art, I guess, these days. I mean, there's just something more inherently creepy about putting on a vinyl record than looking some shit up on fucking Spotify. Like, the whole ritual that surrounds listening to music and how you listen to it and how you approach it and all these things, those are parts that people seem to, either they just recently started, as in like the past, I don't know, fucking 40, 30 years, whatever, like, it seems like they're just kind of starting to take it for granted, or maybe they never appreciated it in the first place because there wasn't really any other alternative to it. Whereas now in, the digital world, you're also seeing things like vinyls and tapes coming back. And I think that might be a result of, you know, people who do realize that there is this ritual to it, and it does create a certain atmosphere where, regardless of, you know, this endless fucking argument about it sounds better on vinyl or whatever, like regardless of that whole thing, it just doesn't create the same atmosphere to be scrolling on your phone as it does when you're, you know, you're buying a fucking record and it's this fucking big, and you take it out and you look at it and you can fucking like touch it and all that shit.
Yeah.
Like that's all stuff that plays into it.
That is a really good point. The ritual, like, I mean, I grew up, I was lucky enough to grow up in an age where you could still buy vinyls.
Right.
And you could still go to a local music store and buy a CD even. You know, nowadays it's Amazon, yeah. And I've just started buying CDs again because I got rid of my entire CD collection years ago. But there was always that whole thing of I would get my money on a weekend, doing chores around the house, and I would go and I would buy this album. And most of the albums I bought, I had to import through my local music store, because I was an addict of film soundtracks. So I'd hear one song by a band on a film soundtrack. I'd go down to the music store. It's like, who is this? Do you have anything? And they would be like, no, but I can get them. So they would import the album. I'd go down, I'd pick it up. Then you'd have to go home and you'd stick your headphones on and bury yourself in that album for a day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's pretty similar to how I was growing up, you know, because I had to import stuff and all that shit too, but I also grew up on literally an island. Like up until like 2000 or 2001, there, like the only, I guess, mode of transportation to get from like point A to point B was by boat. And then in 2001, you get a bridge. So add to that the fact that this place that I grew up in is like about 20 minutes from the place where, when Christianity came to Norway, that's where it came. So it has this cultural stains, I guess we'll call it. Like, it's, God, a fucking, you know, so living in a place like that where, you know, it's the typical fucking story that every alternative person has, you know. It's like, you know, you grow up in this place and you're the only one who looks fucking weird and blah, 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 and, you know, whatever. Like, it's the cliche shit. And, but I guess in my case, it's like, we have these little, there's these buildings, and I don't know what the fuck to call it because there is no translation for it. But I guess you could say it's like a prayer house. Like, right. It's a place where, you know, various sects of Christianity will gather and whatever, you know, go about their business. The place I grew up has so fucking many of these houses, and I would call them sects because, I don't know, I just fucking call it what it is. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean it's some fucking, like, you know, drinking Kool-Aid and shit like that, but I don't know, it's a weird fucking place. And yeah, so, you know, growing up in a place with those kinds of people around, even the fucking one record store that we had, the singular record store, which is like this fucking big, like, you're not gonna find anything. And yet, oddly enough, I would. Like, I remember finding just really, like, weird, obscure, bootleg Manson albums. Like, shit that I have no fucking idea if it's, you know, I would assume what happened is that some fucking goth kid ordered it and then just never came and picked it up.
Yeah.
And then it just stayed in the store for fucking 15 years until I find it, So yeah, like pretty much anything that I wanted as far as like music or, shit like that, I had to just figure out, okay, what label is it on? How do you spell the fucking band name? And then write it down on a piece of paper and just give it to the guy at the store and wait fucking 4 weeks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 'cause like shit just takes forever.
It's such an accurate description of exactly how it was in my town, because I live in a really small town in the middle of South Wales.
Oh yeah.
It's 40 miles to the nearest city either side.
Oh yeah, fuck. That's like where I live now. It's like I have one store, which luckily is walking distance, and it's just a normal store where you buy, bread and butter, basically. Like, if I want anything else, I have to do this whole fucking journey on a bus for like a fucking hour and a half or some shit like that. But I moved out here on purpose, so whatever.
Yeah, I sort of did the same thing. I live I live in a smaller village outside of the small town now. So it's one of the things I never thought I'd do, though, because I always thought of myself as very much a city type person. I love the city. I love going to cities and watching people and seeing the horrible ways that people interact, and the absolute stupid British awkwardness that you have inherently in every British city. I love seeing it, but I can't live in a city anymore. I can't actually live there. I've got to be able to break away.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never really lived in a city, I guess, but then I never really wanted to. I did live in New Orleans for 6 months, though. And I lived in the middle of the French Quarter, where if I went out the door of my apartment and fucking go over to the fucking right-hand side or whatever, I would be on fucking Bourbon Street. So I lived like right there in the middle of fucking everything.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. So, it's interesting. And I guess, obviously a city like New Orleans is not something you could compare to pretty much anywhere else, because I'd be out in the morning to get coffee and you see someone just walking down the street with their fucking tits out covered in glitter, and it's not even a stripper or anything, which would be some form of normalcy, but it's not. And it's just, it's not because anything's going on. Like, it's just a fucking Wednesday morning,
Yeah, it seems like
it's a weird fucking place, but that's probably the city that I've lived in the longest. Though I did live in Bergen, which is the second largest city here in Norway. I did live there for a little bit, but I don't know. It's like, it's so fucking limiting. Like, I want to be able to live in a place where, if it's 4 a.m. and I want to make some fucking music and it's going to be loud, then I can do that without having to think about shit like, the neighbors or roommates or, just crap like that. So, I mean, if that's what you want in life, then you probably shouldn't expect to do that in a city. So yeah, no, I just like moved to the fucking woods, and yeah, I have neighbors, but they don't seem to know what the fuck I'm doing. So I guess the sound is good.
It's not too bad. So what about live shows and things like that? I mean, does that sort of impact your ability to both see and play live shows?
Oh yeah, I've never played in Norway, but it's this weird thing about Norway somehow, where we have that whole fucking black metal thing, but it just, isn't as popular as people think. Like, I feel like a lot of people think like we have 10,000 fucking black metal bars in every city and everyone's into it. Like, no, absolutely fucking not. That's such bullshit. Yeah. And it's the same thing as everywhere else in the world where alternative clubs, I guess you can call it, they're being like shut down and they're going bankrupt and all that shit. And the clubs that do survive, you'll just have the same fucking bands playing the same fucking clubs, an endless rotation, and it's always some derivative of like rock or metal music, which that's fine. I'm into that kind of music, but we don't really seem to have much variety when it comes to music. Like, I know there is a really, really tiny scene for like industrial noise, more like the experimental side of industrial. There is a tiny scene for that, and by tiny I mean it's probably 5 people including me. Like, so it's not like if you're an artist of those genres, it's not like you're gonna have that many places to go play. And another thing, of course, is just Norwegian society and culture and just all these like fucking things that all play into pretty much everything all at once, and it just doesn't create an environment for finding members for your fucking industrial band. Like, it's like that. And I'm very like, I don't want to be another one of these fucking bands where it's a guy and a microphone and a whole bunch of fucking backing tracks. Like, I mean, if I made some kind of, more typical like EDM or whatever, like if I made that kind of shit, like more like dance music, then yeah, I guess, but that's not what I make. And even in the case of like an EBM band, I would still like to see a live drummer and all that shit. But this is all just a result of that, I just stumbled into industrial on accident, and I still carry a lot of those, I guess, ideals from like the punk and metal scene, since that's more my world.
Yeah. So, I mean, prior to the venture into industrial, then what was your bread and butter musically?
I mean, it was a lot of like, it was still like a good variety of things. I was really into like that whole like 80s stuff, like Wasp and Motley Crue and shit like that. I used to have I remember I was 15 and I got the Nicky Six signature bass that he did. I still had it somewhere. So I got that, and I would have Shout at the Devil on a CD. Fucking put that on, like try to play along with it, and just I have this weird, like, vivid memory of like just being so into it that you fucking forget your surroundings. And that's how I almost fucking broke the TV.
Intrigue. There's a story.
It's just, you're just being a fucking kid and you're fucking playing along to like your favorite music and shit like that and just fucking rocking out, and then you swing the fucking bass and,
There goes the TV.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's something that I would do a lot, really. Like, even in a younger age, like I would always put on fucking shows for no one in my fucking bedroom.
Oh,
sounds
God.
like a dorky fucking thing to do, but like that's what I would do. Like, I can't remember a time where I haven't done this, where it's like like being younger, I would listen to like Alice Cooper or Wasp or Motley Crue and shit like that, and Yeah, no, just being a fucking weirdo kid. Like, I remember me and my childhood best friend, we found, I think it was my stepdad's old guitar. And it was this beat up electric guitar. I think it had maybe 2 strings on it. And it didn't have a strap or anything. And, we were kids, so it's kind of heavy because it was, an adult guitar. But I remember us, like, trying to hold that fucking guitar up and then putting on Bark at the Moon and, like, pretending to play that. Just like dorky shit like that. It's kind of I guess it's kind of the rock and metal equivalent of, like, the kid in the fucking mirror singing into a hairbrush.
This is one of the coolest things for me, and I'm gonna point this out because this is the third one of these that I've done, one of these shows. And the coolest thing is that every single one I've done so far, whether it was with Dominic or with Darren or with yourself, I've been told a story from my childhood by someone else.
Yeah.
And the coolest thing is that I've always had this thing of, no, you don't talk about that because that's just silly.
Yes.
And I'm realizing the more of these that I do, how I was not alone in the weird shit that I used to do when I was a kid. I thought, nah, no one ever did that. But, like, even talking about putting on shows by yourself.
No.
I still find myself doing that shit now. I'll be there and I'll be, because I record all the songs, sort of this riff, and I'll get that down and then I'll move on to the next riff. I always have a session with myself at the end of any new song where I play the whole song start to finish.
Right, yeah, of course.
And quite often I've found myself stood in my room with my guitar plugged in, and I've looked up in the mirror and I've realized I'm rocking out by myself in my room at 32 years old. It's still happening.
Yeah. Fuck, I don't know, I'm never fucking old.
Exactly.
It's God, I don't even know what to say about that. I don't know. Fuck else are you supposed to do, man? Like, who cares? It's just, you're just being fucking passionate about it. Like, yeah, whatever.
It's nice to talk to people on that level where those little things that you've kept buried because you think they were silly, and then someone else tells you that story, you're just like, yes, I'm no.
Like, haha, you're a fucking weirdo too.
There are others like me somewhere.
Yeah.
So far, I've managed the States and Norway, so.
Oh, God. Okay, just give me like 2 minutes. I have to fucking pee.
Yeah, no sweat, dude.
One eternity later.
Okay. Jesus Christ.
All
right. Yeah, I'll probably just edit out that.
Yeah. I'm serious, dude. It's at some point in the future, I'm gonna do a festival, and it's just gonna be every person that I've had on this show do a set. So far, it's turning out to be quite a fun thing. So give us all a chance to get together.
Yeah, no, fuck. What the fuck are we talking about? Oh yeah, live shows. Yeah, no, not really an option here, but yeah, I don't know. I did play some shows in America when I was there recently, but like, I'm not really that interested in playing in Norway anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let's just have to switch my headset.
All right.
I don't even know how. I don't think I can. What am I even connected to?
Okay.
I found it.
All right. Good.
There we go. We're back.
Yay.
So what was it? Live shows in Norway. Not an ambition there.
Nah. Not really.
So what took you out to America to do shows?
Just like basically two different things happened around the same time, and it just all kind of worked out. I started dating this girl who I'm still with, and she just happened to live in Florida, and around the same time that happened, I was talking to Richie, who's the singer and founder of the band MissFit Toys, and they're based in Florida as well. So, both of these things kind of happened at the same time, and he was in need of someone to play, keyboards and synths and shit like that. And, it just kind of, we were just talking about like maybe him doing a remix or something for me. And that never happened, but we kept in touch, and I just kind of suggested, hey, so I know you need someone to do this thing, and I know how to do that, and I'm able to, go and fucking be there for like 6 months. So yeah, I guess it was December, I think, of last year. I went to Florida, and at first I would just like stay and like live with my girlfriend. And then after a while, both of us actually ended up just moving in with Richie, just living with him and playing shows and rehearsals and all that. And yeah, so that's kind of what led to all that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So is there future in that as well, or is that a one and done sort of situation?
No, it's like a thing that's going to keep going. It's just that there's, with like laws and shit between Norway and America, it's like I can only be out of the country for a certain amount of time, and all this boring shit. Yeah. So plan is to just be 6 months here and 6 months in America, and during the 6 months that I'm there, I'd be playing shows and all that stuff. But like even now when I'm here, I'm still involved in like various band activities. Like we've been working on putting together like a remix EP with a new single on it. So that's getting close to being finished, I guess. Been working on an album, just all these things. Of course, when I first went over there, there was plans to, do a tour and all these fucking things, and obviously that doesn't happen because the virus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we took the time that we lost due to virus being like fucking everywhere, just canceling everything. Like we didn't just stop. Like I remember the day that we were told that our shows had been canceled, we started planning to do a live stream that day, and it took like I don't know, it took maybe like a month or something before we actually did it. But we were pretty early with just having that idea of doing a live stream, because there's nothing else to do, and we still want to play shows. So I mean, we'd seen a few other people trying to do it, but we were trying to find a way to, I guess, make it just of a higher quality, really. Like we put a lot of time into things like, okay, how can we get the best sound? How can we get the best video? All these different things, and it's like trial and error with that kind of thing. I mean, we had never done anything like it before, but obviously we seem to like, people seem to like it.
It's cool, man. I really dig that stuff. So.
Yeah, so we did some of that, just working on new music, and now that I'm here, I've been just doing a lot of like graphical work and designing merch and shit like that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we have hit the approximate time limit. So I'm going to end the cast there, but there's loads left to talk about. So if you'd be up for it, we'll do another one of these real soon. Yeah,
of course. Anytime.
So for everyone watching, thanks for checking it out. Links to various Adrian-related musical goodness is in the description. Thank you, Adrian, for coming on. And
of course. Thank you.
It's been great.
Yeah.